Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Zwift Community Live broadcast of the Team Fearless 5th Annual Women's Team Championships. It's powered by WTRL this year, which means it does have some awesome AutoCAD going on. They've got the ability to throw people into all different kinds of pens with a locked event, so nothing's going to get messed with except for those who are jumping into the event and registered. Pretty cool that it is powered by WTRL this year. Myself and Kate Bates on for the commentary today. We've got a long race out here today. It's got points racing and lots of segments up for grabs. A lot of the top teams are out there from the women's only event. Again, this is a women's only event. I saw 760 some riders in the pens, Kate, prior to even, like, I think it was 10 minutes before. I think there's like almost 1,000 ladies racing out here today.
It is unbelievable. It is so good. And not only that, we have the absolute best of the best. Some of the names I've seen on the start list are pretty exciting as well. The best teams are here. I also heard a sneaky rumor that there's some llamas out on course, which is exciting. If you don't know, we all know that's my favorite animal. We'll figure that out. But Nathan, it is so great. And it's also good to see a little bit of a longer race because we get so used to these shorter, sharper, within 1 hour kind of events. But the A's and the B's, they have 54 miles, 87 kilometres out on course, a little bit shorter for the C's and the D's. We will be covering all the categories. I dare say, Nathan, there'll be a fair few pedal strokes for us to really dive into the detail around all that's going on out on course.
Yeah, it's a long one. Meg 8 for 3 laps for the A's and the B's. C's and D's, they're doing 2 laps of Magnificent 8. You hit just about everything when it comes to old school and some of the new school Watopia. So this is going to be pretty much a Watopia championship here with points on the grabs. There's a ton of information on this event, specifically over at WTL.racing/fearless. If you do want to go check that out as well. We'll be here for about 2 hours plus here actually covering this. So going to be an awesome day of racing here. The ladies in the B category is where we're going to start out with actually as they get out on course. We do see 130 riders actually out in the B category. We're jumping right on in with Team Rave. As you can see, they have made their way over toward the volcano to start with. And on the May gate, we'll take a look at the profile in just a second, but it does look like no much damage up front, most likely, especially in the B category. I think, you know, Anna, in Zwift racing, excuse me, Kate, I wish Anna was going to be on the broadcast with us. You know, someone from down under area just coming into the, but we have this situation where I think a lot of these riders in the B category may not be used to, or those that might be able to shine a little bit more with more of an endurance type event versus what you usually get with Zwift racing, which is this high velocity powered, 40-minute, what do you got? How, can you hang on to the big punches? This is going to be a little bit more of a race of attrition, I think.
I think you're spot on. And the other really interesting factor about it, you mentioned straight up, Nathan, just the huge number of entries that we have. If we look at the leagues that are broken up by geographic region, often we get super high quality fields, but in smaller numbers. Now, I dare say we've got a lot of people jumping in on this race from all different time zones around the world. And so we do have this critical mass and quite a big bunch. It really changes the dynamic of racing. It will certainly suit a lot of the riders more to be able to sit in and look after themselves. And it's where strategy comes into play a bit more than simply hanging on. Sometimes in those weekly ZRLs, it is kind of a case of find a wheel and survive because there's not a lot of places to hide. A little bit different here, a few more places to hide, but not to say that they're not going to push it pretty hard from the front because already we can see it's stringing out a bit at the smallest little lump, Nathan, and I think that's where people are going to really start to apply the pressure.
Yeah, we are getting into a little bit of a pressure point here initially. This little S-turns through the exit of the junction over from Volcano into the Italian Village does tend to be a pressure point. You can put a little bit of something on because the avatars do slow down. The bikes do slow down through this section, of course. And because of that, the draft is a little bit more difficult to hold. You do see some pretty serious attacks toward the front now. We'll see if we can jump in with who is pushing the pace up there because it does look like it's going to be DDC actually pressing. Katrina Weiss is here as well, one of the long-standing. She's actually been at some live esports event, Katrina Weiss, riding for the Ionian Banditas out here. Bandias. Great to see Katrina back out in the competition. 179 beats per minute right now coming from her for the Ionian team. I'd be watching out for them. You do see a lot of the Ionian jerseys up toward the front right now. This seems to be a little bit coordinated. At least they're following each other. Vikings here as well. Gallagher, well known from the Zwift Racing League there from DDC, also involved. And WTRL jersey making their way toward the front. So a lot of the big teams here already starting to stack up at the front as they do leave the Italian village. And they're going to be heading on toward their, I believe, first climb here in just a moment.
Well, there's some pretty high heart rates for early on in the race, aren't they? It's a case of there'll be some riders who have warmed up quite well already and are there and ready to race and put the pressure on. But there will definitely be other riders, Nathan, who have really only just tapped away at the pedals in the start pen, knowing that it's a longer race and thinking that they will warm up through it. If you do take that tactic, you do have to be a little bit brave, because if somebody does hit the gas pretty early on, it can do a lot of damage. Little gaps are opening up, and we can see that. You do have to make sure in a bunch this size, it can be easy to just drift toward the back and think that you're quite safe, safety in numbers, but you actually really need to make sure that the wheel you're sitting on is a good, safe wheel, or otherwise, my mantra was always near the front, not on the front. So you don't want to be sitting on the front, but you do always want to be up near the action, because we can already see two groups forming in the distance that are starting to lose a little bit of time. Now, they may well roll back on and rejoin, but it is a bit of mental stress and it's a bit of extra physical effort that isn't necessarily needed for them. The road is kicking upwards. As you mentioned, Nathan, we've got a KOM out on course, as well as the Fuego Flat forward sprint, but the hilly climb reverse is first up to challenge everybody. It's early in the race to have a big KOM. The ones that have warmed up will certainly be feeling a little bit more comfortable at this stage.
Yeah, and they are just about to hit the reverse KOM, and we already have a split, so going to be difficult for that pack to come back. As you did see, a very large group, actually. That's a solid 20 riders, it looks like, on the chase here, Kate. So going to be tough to get back on terms. It does look like some of the riders using the opportunity of the uphill grind to maybe latch back on, but toward the front now immediately we see Ionian on the attack, it looks like. Ionian here with, it seems to be, now Claire Good is there, Tash is there as well, Crush Pod making a little bit of a move with Joe as well. So the rider, though, at the front, it is going to be Ridgeway, actually, from the BVRT team. Inga from the Kirchmer Cycling, Crush Pod as well with Joanne on the attack. And Joanne, though, actually with Crush Pod in the name, it looks like, and actually in the kit, excuse me. So it does look like they are smashing it here right now with the No Gods, No Masters kit on. Bankston now from the Vikings team toward the front. Andrea there from the Ionian team. That's who we were looking for the AEO at 191 beats per minute. So this is kind of a no-joke effort. This is the major climb on the day that they'll be hitting 3 times. First time up, and already it is completely strung out in this women's event.
I've just noticed, that's a great kit, by the way, the Crushpod kit, but I've just noticed from the APAC Zwift Racing League, Margot Jaquette, if you remember Margot, she was sensational, or perhaps it was America West. Either way, Nathan, we covered both. She was an absolute standout sensation. And I've noticed that she's there, but she's actually dropped back a few seconds. Knowing what she's capable of, I dare say that that's an example of not the best position in the world early on in the race when they get into it. And it just highlights that we've got some really big hitters who are actually having to just survive at the moment and find a good wheel because of the way this has started to play out. I think that once they get over the top here, we will see a tighter formed bunch because people won't want to make that mistake twice. But this is certainly an opportunity to thin the pack out. And if we look at the top right of screen and all those dots, we can see that front to back there is a bit of length that has formed amongst this group. Not so much a nice blob anymore, but more of a strung out line. Now, saying that, at the front of this pack, nobody's having to take particular responsibility. Everybody is putting their head in the wind and forcing the pace and keeping this group thinning out as it is. But it doesn't look to me, Nathan, like anybody in particular is trying to make a hero attack. What was the term you used? I think a no-joke attack, I think you said. I haven't heard that. I like that. I'll steal that if it's not copyrighted. But I think you're
no
right.
NG at the end of that one. I don't think there's an NG at that one.
Oh, okay. They made that effort, but they didn't continue with it in a way that it was do or die. They absolutely forced the pace and forced that break. And we can see this front pack is now forming into quite a tight group. Everything I said about there being this fantastic safety in numbers early, well, they've kind of thrown that out the window pretty quickly because this is now a much smaller bunch. It is still sizable enough that you can get a rest in there. But this is certainly an interesting way to start an 87-kilometre race and shows a bit of confidence. I like that.
Oof, right at the line there, it looks like. There's some points on the line, it looked like there, and that was maybe a little too close to call. See what we can grab here maybe on a replay. You know, Anna, I keep on thinking Anna's with me. I don't know what is going on with this.
I don't mind. It's
just call you Anna the whole time. Kate, I've never noticed, I've been broadcasting and doing the gameplay on these for 5 years now, and that was the first time I noticed how steep those cliffs are next to the riders, that there's just an immediate fall off on the right-hand side there. That was like, that's why the camera angle I was doing with there, like, what? Holy cow, this is actually like a real, like if they were to ride their bikes, boom, and that's why we need a downhill course. There needs to be a little right-hand turn. All right, I'm totally off of what the commentary is actually about now, but the mountain biker had to come out for just a moment. A little bit of a kick because we did see over the top there. And I'm going to see if we can bring in a replay of what just went down, because that was a solid point section for this B category. It is going to be very important for the end of the race here. So as we do take a look real quickly, it does look like, well, it looks like we're going to have a black screen actually on the replay. We'll see if we can bring that back in just a moment. And we'll get the points up in just a moment as well to figure out what ended up happening. They're going to make their way on over toward the Fuego Flats here. I believe with a left-hand turn. It is a whole lot of figure eight out here. Their first time over the top of that climb of the reverse. We do have chat as well. Everybody who's hanging out over at the Facebook as well as Twitch. Looks like we got a lot of viewers popping in here to cheer on their favorite riders in this championship. So make sure to let us know who your favorite rider is, who you are watching out here today. And if you have any questions or comments as well, as you hang out with us, go ahead and bring them. We will make sure to answer them or interact as best we possibly can and feature you in the broadcast as well. Now, we do have someone directly from Team Fearless, actually. We do have, she's going to have to help me out with the pronunciation of the name, as we were laughing about it actually prior to the broadcast, as we do have Jeanette from Team Fearless, one of the admins actually from Team Fearless. Jeanette, welcome to the broadcast. And help me out with the pronunciation of the last name one more time. That was you had to help me as we were in productions actually.
Yeah, Jeanette Rosbach.
Rosbach. See, it's that.
Rosbach.
I would just say Rosbach as coming out of the Netherlands. So great. Welcome to the broadcast. One of the admins from Team Fearless. One of the people who has made this happen for us out here today. Welcome. We really appreciate all the hard work that you have put in. And Team Fearless being such a long-standing team. I think one of the first women's specific teams that have had a kit put in game, if not the first women's specific team kit that was ever put in game. So great to have you here, and awesome job with this event.
Yeah, thank you. I think we were most likely the first one with the first women's team with a kit, because we were the first all-female racing team on Zwift as well. So might be the history that we're sharing there. So yeah, and thanks for having me on and hosting this race, of course. Yeah, definitely. So much fun.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. You know, go ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
Oh no, Jeanette, I'm just really curious about what came about to start Team Fearless, because it is so incredible to have an all-women's community. But what was the impetus behind it?
Amy Levang, she is our team owner. She started Team Fearless just after the very first Swift Academy. And then there the community grew. The female community of Swift grew in that first Swift Academy. And from that, she created the first racing team, Team Fearless.
Awesome.
So that's how we got started.
On that front, then this team championships, I feel like kicked off pretty quickly because Zwift, if I do my math correctly, is 6 years old, essentially from that beta year, which 2015. And this is a 5th annual women's event. So that was a pretty quick turnaround to starting this event. And I think I remember the first one, I think there was a pretty good participation then as well with some of the old school teams. I remember Team Kiss being in there, Team Fearless was there, and it kind of, in my opinion, launched even this idea of women being like, oh, we can have our own teams here. Like, let's do our own thing. Like, it was kind of like you guys were this pioneers in making that happen.
Yeah, most definitely. I looked up some of the information. Thanks, Swift Insider, for having the history all written down there. It was created or thought of because there was Team Worlds back in 2017. It was called VR Worlds, I think. That was hosted for the third time that year in 2017. And then there was no podium for the women's category, for the women's teams or for the women at all. They had some races, but no podium and no QOM placings and stuff like that. So Amy decided, well, we need to have our own team racing. And that's how our first annual women's team championship came about. And in 2017, we started out with 50 people signing up for the race. So we've grown a lot since then, with now 190 teams joining the race.
Yeah, it's incredible how many women are out on course. I actually don't think I've ever seen this many women in Zwift at once. It's a really cool thing. Jeanette, the one thing that I can't help but notice that really stands out to me is how long this race is compared to kind of normal traditional Zwift races. And I think it's sensational that there's a bit more distance. But am I correct that it used to be even longer, over 100 kilometers?
Yeah, I just looked it up again. On Swift Insider, there are some different highlights of our races. And in the very first year, the A category raced over 119 kilometers, so 74 mile. So we trended down a bit just to be a bit more accessible, especially for the ladies who are racing like late in the evening in Europe or early in the morning in Australia. So, yeah. Wow. But then the D category did a very much shorter race. They only did 30K, so 18 and a half miles. So we decreased
the
middle
for the somewhere. Yeah.
So, also on this whole front of women's racing, Team Fearless, and what other things are happening with Team Fearless? We're focusing on this event out here today, the team's championships as well. And where else can we catch Team Fearless and find out, if people want to find out more, what you guys are up to, joining Team Fearless, getting involved in events that you put on? Is there other things that you're doing out on Zwift besides the team championship?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have our weekly events, both for riding and running. And we host group rides several times a week on different levels. And on Friday, we even have a co-ed ride. So all our events are women only, except for the Vrijai ride. That's a co-ed ride. And then we have races throughout the week as well. So racing, a beginner's race, very popular as well, which is a very short distance and very nice for the people who are either recovering or are very new to racing. So they have a very nice beginner race and then several races throughout the week. So that's the racing and the riding we do. And then for the running, we have events scheduled as well. But running is still growing on Zwift, so not many events. There are smaller groups that are happening there. And also, well, within our team, we join the WTRLs, TTTs, and all the other races as well, and this Swift racing community thing.
Sounds like, as far as the community of Team Fearless goes, there is a large breadth of disciplines within sports that cycling involves itself in. It sounds like there's triathlon. It sounds like there's all kinds of cycling disciplines. Now there's running as well. So there's a huge breadth, it sounds like, of these of rider types that you can get involved with. So, I mean, being such a long-standing team, there's probably little pockets within even Team Fearless that are encouraging women to get involved in different kinds of sport discipline, which is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it's a very supportive team. We're not the biggest team out there, but we like to keep it small so we know each other, and we have a tight community together. And also, we see sorry. So we see each other within our closed Facebook community group, and at the time we even decided we were gonna go to invite only. So you had to join a couple of events before and get to know us, and we get to know you, because we were growing too big and that didn't feel like our team anymore. So that's when we decided to go invite only at the moment.
Right on, right on. Well, we do have a lot of racing going on here now, and some of the D category are just heading toward their first sprint section after the KOM. So we're going to head on down back on course. But Jeanette, thank you so much for giving us some time and some insight into Team Fearless. Is there somewhere people, if they want to follow up to find out more about Team Fearless, obviously WTRL.racing/fearless is where they can find some stuff. But is there a website you want to point people to as well as socials?
I think the Facebook social is the most easiest access point. We have a Facebook page that is Team Fearless, and then there's a Facebook group that you can request to join. It's Team Fearless Fans, and there you can follow all our events and our notifications and stuff like that. So easiest to find us on Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
And of
Jeanette,
course,
for jumping in with us. Really appreciate it, and good luck in the future with Team Fearless. Absolutely awesome. Kate, so great what they've accomplished here. Just absolutely amazing what this team has done and what they're doing for the women's community. And can you speak to that, though? You know, I mean, I can't speak to that nearly as well, obviously, as to what a benefit that is, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Nathan, because when Jeanette said one of the things behind starting it was doing a race and the women not having a podium or a QOM, and that's kind of, you're getting into blood boiling territory for me when you mention that sort of stuff.
Did you have a punching bag next to you at that moment? Yeah. Did anything break in that room over there? Like, what's happening?
I've already broken enough lately. No, it's I may or may not have gotten into some social media arguments on that exact topic around sure women have their own environment to race, and inevitably one of the arguments that comes up, Nathan, is that there's not enough numbers, or women don't mind racing with men, or it's equal when everyone's racing together. But I think the base is that we know women want their own community, women want their own races, notwithstanding there are some of the elite women who can race with the men, and sometimes it is fun to race in a co-ed environment. I think there's also a huge demand and need for a safe space for women to belong, to race, to chat, just to be and to feel comfortable. And this is such an incredible community to be able to get, nearly 1,000 women from all around the world getting up at all sorts of hours. There'll be some people up pretty late and some people up pretty early to be part of this. I think it just speaks to that, how much the demand is really there for the women. So I'm incredibly proud of the Fearless team. I think they've done a really great thing and given a lot of women a place to belong. So I reckon we're just at the beginning of what we might see from this community. Nathan, year 5, but this could become a real legacy.
Pretty amazing. And talk about sticking it to the community that might say that there aren't the numbers. I mean, right now there's 115 D category riders smashing it right now out here on course. I actually love the D category, talking about drinking too much wine and no sprint for me right now, and having a little bit of fun out here as well. But it looks like Ecox here from the Dinos giving a little bit of a push off the front out of Canada for the WTRL team, but it's going to be Fearless now. 7.08 watts per kilogram on the sprint, 181, 182 beats per minute as Allie tries to come over to the top from the Blitzen Babes. Not going to happen. Fearless is going to take down that sprint in this D category. Solid kick there. Then we do have, it looks like one of your kits in game here with the Llamas is Trish out of the US of A. And there's going to be no drama here as she didn't take down a sprint. But she was maybe fifth across the line. I'll have to take a look here. But this is your kit, right?
I'm loving this. It is. Can you take a screenshot for me, please, Mr. Tech? And this is Team Llama Stay, which I absolutely love. And Trisha Calamaris is also a wonderful DS when she's not racing. So she's quite experienced. She's done over 130 races in the Zwift world. And might I say, she's looking resplendent with the matching get-up with the Tron and the little pink accessories. Just to deviate and talk about fashion for a moment. But, you know, I have to say it was one of my proudest moments to get a kit in-game. So when I got the Llama jersey in-game, I felt disproportionately happy. I thought this is strange just how happy and inspired I am. But it is awesome to see people repping it out. And something I want to really point to when we were watching that sprint, if you don't know what category you are watching, it all looks the same. And that's something I really love about Zwift. They race hard and they race strategically. And even if their watts per kg are slightly higher or slightly lower, it tends not to affect the quality of the racing too much, which I think is really cool. And you also have a lot of people in D and C Cat in particular who are just learning how to race. And it often makes it pretty exciting and pretty dynamic racing while they're trying out all of their different tactics. So it is good to swap across the categories. Speaking of which, we are back on the Bs, and it looks like after that, rush of excitement up that first KOM, QOM as it would be, Nathan, they're all back together.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump on over here because there was just a catch made from a chase group of about 20 plus riders actually. So much larger group now that has come back together in this B category. As I move my way through, I do believe we've got probably 50 plus riders here in this lead group after that initial sprint. I think the sprint happened and then everyone kind of sat up and looked at each other a little bit like, does anybody want to give a go? We've got a pretty long race ahead of us. I mean, there's still about 67K to go, right? So a long day in the saddle yet. And probably after that initial sprint and that initial Queen of the Mountain, they're looking at each other like, well, now who's going to do the work? Does anybody want to make an attack? So I think this is, and from your experience in racing at these kind of distances, Kate, this is kind of that classic 30-minute in lull that you'll get in a longer day in the saddle, I would think.
Yeah, it is. This is where some people are just starting to warm up. Others have had a bit of an effort out on course and tested their legs and are comfortable with how they feel. So now are confident to sit back and wait for it to unfold a little bit. There's always some riders in any bunch who just like attacking and get quite bored when it's rolling along like this, when the pace is, I was going to say not too high, but they're still going 40k an hour. So let's not pretend that they're, both feet out of the pedals and just cruising along. They're still hoofing along to a degree, but certainly there's a lot more draft to be had sitting in this bunch. And this is where they can all take a drink, have a bit of a chat and regroup, because there will be more pressure points coming up every time they do hit that KOM or that sprint. Inevitably, some gaps will open up. And each time we go over them as well, as we're getting closer to the finish, there will be somebody brave enough to really hit the gas very hard and see what kind of damage they can do. So this section of the race, I find, is usually, if it's an IRL race, Nathan, is where people are having a bit of a chat and a bit of a catch-up and chatting about what they may have been up to. A little bit different in this world, but it's the same kind of idea that generally this is the most relaxed section of the race, but they are all very aware that won't last for too long.
Jumping on in, and we do have live cams actually from some of our racers out here today. Socks for Watts, big thank you to them as they have provided some of the live cams. And one of the top racers in the world when it comes to Zwift esports is going to be Alice Lethbridge, riding for Socks for Watts out here today, one of the community teams, obviously. She also rides in the Premier League 4 Premier Division of Zwift Racing League for Team Hino as well, one of the most successful teams, obviously, out there in the world of Zwift esports. Level 50, of course, out on Zwift. And I'd be watching out for Alice Lethbridge to be most likely one of the favorites to win this race out here today.
They've got a really good team. I firstly want to point out, Alice looks like she's going for a Sunday ride. Look at her. She's just chilling out. Like, there's no part of that picture that says to me that she's in any trouble at all, which is good. We were just discussing just that, how they'd be feeling at this point in the race. And, she does look like she's cruising along and pretty comfortable. And might I give her also kudos for fitting that bike setup into what looks like the spare room and the home office. I love it. I think that is multitasking to the max for Alice. But they've got a great team. They've also got Aussie Vicky Whitelaw, who was our inaugural Australian eSport national champion and had a very good career racing in real life on the road in Europe as well. So she is incredibly strong, and she actually stopped her overseas European career not because her physiology was no longer good enough to be competitive, but more that she came to the sport a bit later, and kind of life issues for an Australian to spend all of their time in Europe is a little bit more difficult. So when she decided to retire from the professional racing league, it was good timing for Zwift to pop up because she has now been going really well there. All expectations are that she will be on the team for the Australian esports team for the World Championship. So Vicky, I think, is just starting to ramp up her esports season, which may include a little bit of IRL racing as well. So that's also an interesting consideration, that she's at quite a different point in terms of it's summer here in Australia, so she is able to get out side as well as doing some of the indoor racing, whereas some of the Europeans and Americans are certainly going to be relying a lot more heavily on Zwift in the coming months.
Well, we also have in the B category from Socks Watts. Want to be also, they've done a great job today of providing us with images and cameras. So I want to definitely highlight the riders out here today that they have provided and put the effort in for that. Katie Robinson, actually, for the Socks for Watts pizza party, is in here with us. And so it's great to see her jumping on in. And, there's a lot of medals in that room. A lot. And we had a different view. We had a different view earlier, and that's not all of them. That's not even close to all of them, actually. Like, every wall in this person's room is stacked like that with medals, and I think mainly triathlon. You do see the bars there. She does have the where she's shifting on there, the tri bars, aero bars on there. So it most likely a triathlete here riding in the B category for the Socks for Watts pizza party. So great to see her, and a big thank you again for the live images of the race. Has made the front group, obviously, as she's hammering away. Actually, I have she's done a great job on her Zwift Power profile. And it looks like she's got her personal best out here. Outdoor 10 mile, 25:33 TT, and a 25 mile at 1:02:26. National Hill Climb, it looks like 36th place overall in that. She's a level 40 Zwifter. I think this rider here, when I'm looking at her sprint, though, she wants a breakaway situation. I'm looking at her best sprint out on Zwift for 15 seconds is about a 7:48, unless she hasn't been involved in too many big sprints. But I would doubt that being on Socks for Watts pizza party. But my feeling here is that this rider is going to want to get into a breakaway situation, especially in a B category race with 88 kilometers. She might actually be thinking it's a W out here. That was a Coke. Definitely getting the sugar into the body and the bloodstream. Loving to see it. And I have a feeling that this rider, along with some of the others, though, from the Socks for Watts pizza party, maybe looking to try and break things apart later in the race?
I think that they're in a really good position to do exactly that. I tell you, a Coke with, still 50K left to race, that kind of means business. That's a bit of a throwdown right there. And it is awesome, as you say, that they do provide cameras. It is the best, and I urge any teams to provide us with any of this sort of stuff that you can, because it is a really great insight, not only for us on commentary and production, but also for anybody watching, to get a bit of an idea of the rider behind the avatar. And I'm also going to give a big high five to the just sheer size of that screen that she has. That's a bit of a thing, isn't it, Nathan? It's like some people I notice are doing Zwift, they post their photos on socials with a tiny little iPad. And I always think, I don't know how you could do it with an iPad. I need a lot more real estate on my screen to be able to Zwift and get immersed in it. And that seems to be the philosophy here. That is a fantastic setup. And perhaps when she's really in the box and really struggling, she can just cast her eye over to those medals and remind herself that she is more than capable, and that can give her a little bit of motivation.
Very immersive setup, I would say, for sure. How she's able to get, and I wouldn't downplay at all the larger screen like that, and really being able to be a little bit more in tune with what your avatar is up to and how to draft when, especially when the pressure is on, it starts to string out and you get that long echelon line and you need to find that wheel perfectly. A smaller screen far away from you is going to make things a little bit more difficult. So she's definitely got a pretty serious setup here for a racing situation.
I agree. I am all for the big screen and for being absolutely immersed, that word that you use in the whole situation. And it is also good to see people's setups. But if we just go back to the body language, if you look on screen and it looks like the whole bunch is blobbing very well, you could easily say that the effort's, not too high and everybody's doing okay. But when you actually look at the effort, out of the seat and having to put a fair bit of work in, a heart rate doesn't edge toward 170. She's about to go over that, it looks like.
On the attack a little bit. She pressed the pace right to the front, Kate. Like, that was a solid 6 over the top here. And some of the ladies, I think, are struggling to follow this 3%er. A little bit, maybe a little bit of a move.
She's comfortable with it. She's pushing the pace a little bit, but she's not doing so in a silly way. She's not just wasting energy. So I feel as though perhaps she's just testing her legs a little bit, Nathan. On every pinch point, she's kind of, not only for herself, but for the others, seeing how she's feeling. It is still quite a large group. Jaquette there, the Z Sun rider that I pointed to earlier, good to see her back on or not on the front, Margot, but near the front. She's only just kind of delving into the world of Zwift racing, but she is an incredible athlete. So it has been sensational to watch her progress through the ranks, and it's great to see her putting herself out there on some of the longer races as well.
Well, they are just about to finish their first lap. 1 lap down in just a moment here. Just for a heads up for all you watching the broadcast, if you're wondering how this is going to play out, well, this will be the final sprint section as they come through 2 more times after this, and this will be when things are really ramping up. So the ladies are going to get a look at the run into the finish line here in just a moment, as well as we are. We're going to jump back in with the A category, but we do see a lot of the B category riders here right now, throwing down some power-ups that they do not want through the rest of the lap number 2, it looks like. Probably some of them looking for a feather at this point, or an arrow, I would suggest. But I think the feather really may be what they're after right now, because they're going to head over to that volcano again. They'll do the little cutoff over to the Italian village. And the next major point out on course, Kate, is going to be the reverse Queen of the Mountain again. So I think a lot of the riders that are using these feathers right now, and even the arrow right now, are thinking, I really need a feather when it comes to that reverse KOM or Queen of the Mountain there for that 10+% gradient.
Yeah, so they do have an arrow, a draft, and a feather, so that we do know, we have seen it many times where that power up will really come into play and can really make a big difference, especially when you are starting to struggle a bit, but also when you're a well-timed attack and a well-timed drop of a power-up can do a whole lot of damage to people who are a little bit unawares. But I also do think that if people don't have the power-ups, they don't need to be scared about that. If you can anticipate the timing of a move or when that power-up will run out, I think you can also hang on through those pretty tough sections. But it is good to think ahead to drop the power-up you don't want in the hope of getting a slightly better one. That's certainly an effort. But I think it also kind of highlights, Nathan, that we can expect some attacks coming up on this next lap on the KOM. So they are at the end of lap 1 of 3 and 3 KOMs and 3 sprints along the way. We've already seen a bit of action in the one, both in the KOM and in the sprint. I think the second lap is going to just bring an increased level of intensity through those sections.
Jumping in with Tilly Field here. I have a feeling you might know that name. Riding for Rock Salt. It looks like Liv Schramm, if coming out of your neck of the woods. But here in real life, she's got a pro kit badge, it looks like. But WLC has picked her up in game, though, which is a huge pickup, most likely. They have been stacking their team, Kate. That's WLC crew. And this is not a name that I'm, to be honest, super familiar with when it comes to Zwift racing. Level 25 out here. She did do Zwift Racing League over this past season. Took a 16th and a 21st in the EMEA West Division 1, it looks like. So some solid results there. We'll see what she can pull off here in this Team Fearless Championship. But good to see some of the in real life pros also jumping in with some of the top end racers, obviously, for this championship right now, for this event out here. I'm seeing Annie Poland out here as well. She's, Christina Grossman for Riot is here. I missed that. I did not check. I did not actually notice that Riot was even involved here. So as we just continue to go through this front pack for the A category, we're starting to notice how many Palmares are existing here. Some huge names, actually.
How did you miss that? The one that I'm really excited about is Anna Rogers and Alicia Starts, who we saw in America West in the ZRL Community Leagues last season, or season 1, I suppose. But then they went and got upgraded, didn't they? So we haven't seen a lot of them in the last season. But it's fantastic to see them out here racing as well. And it's unusual that I get to see the America West riders that I've become very fond of watching racing with the Australian cohort as well. So it's a pretty stacked bunch out here. We've talked about Lethbridge, Catherine Curry from Riot. She's
wait a second. I see the team name Riot next to Catherine Curry. That is not, usually it's I race like a girl out here. So where is Anna? I don't know what's going on with this. What is going on with this team? Because that is a complete change up. And have they completely drafted her? Or is this just a guest ride for Team Fearless Champs? I need some information here, because if Catherine Curry went over to Team Riot, that is a huge pickup and completely changes the dynamic of that team in certain ways, because this is somebody who can lead the team in a whole new direction, in my opinion, because she brings so much to the table to an already amazing stellar roster.
Yeah, well, I noticed that on the team list. And Anna, I don't know where you are, Anna Russell, apparently at a family Christmas party. But we saw her name on the start list and we thought, maybe she's
messaging her on Discord. I'm sending a Discord message right now with "we need info!" exclamation marks.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping she has her phone open at wherever she is in the world right now to let us know what is going on here.
Not to interrupt the family Christmas, Anna, but we need some info. But I did notice Catherine Curry and Christina Grossman together in that Riot list, and I thought, oh, gee, there's a team that you don't want to look past for a moment. And Anna is often in the team car, being the DS for that. So she may not be doing that at the moment, as we understand, but she'll certainly have a little bit of insight into it. But we really have such a stacked field. And I think that in the back end of this race, it will get very interesting. I'm also very happy to see Ange Mcrae out there, another name that we have seen really rise through the levels in this Swift racing. It always excites me, Nathan, when there's names that I've seen in the Bs and the Cs who are now racing in the As. I'm quite proud of them. You know, you get on the journey with a lot of these athletes, and interestingly, I dare I say I would probably walk straight past them in the supermarket, because I don't know a lot of their faces necessarily unless I've raced or seen them in real life. But, you know, the two that have just incredible CVs in real life are certainly Catherine Curry and Vicky Whitelaw. They're two that you wouldn't want to line up against. Good pickup of Tilly Field, I have to say. She's a bit of a online superstar, Nathan. She's got her own YouTube channel. She gets out and about a little bit. She is a really good addition to the Live Rock Salt team of Victorians. So I suppose to an American, south of New South Wales and Queensland. So the winters are a little bit colder and the summers do get a little bit hotter in some moments as well. She would be very much looking forward to the summer after a massive lockdown in the last couple of years. We have seen a rise of the Victorian riders in the esports world because they spent longer in lockdown, Nathan, than anywhere else in the world. I'm not sure that's a badge that many of them are too proud of, but it did result in quite an uptick, the Victorian cohort in the esports world.
How many riders are in this front group? Because I continue to see check mark after check mark next to names here, pro kits riding by. So, I mean, I think we're just getting the surface right now and this overview, but I have a feeling as we get later into the race, the cream of the crop is going to start rising here, and we're going to get, a very select group as people start to get tired out a little bit, but still a very large group here. My question is, with how flat this course is, can Grossman hang on, right? Christina Grossman to the line, if she's got the endurance in the legs, doesn't waste her sprint, doesn't go for any intermediates, she could win this outright as well. She could go toe-to-toe, I think, with some of the top ZRL Premier Division riders when it comes to a sprint. But the question is, can she hold on till the end up against the likes of a Catherine Curry, and some of these other top names here when it comes to Alice Lethbridge, obviously, who has been dominating in the past in the Zwift Racing League as well. So, if Grossman, though, can hang on all the way to the end, don't count her out for a huge win against some of these top names, being only a rider who's only won and done amazing job for Ride, obviously, within the community. This is kind of an opportunity for her, though, to shine at that final sprint today if she reserves a lot of that energy.
Really good point, and it is a very interesting one to discuss at this point in the race, where they are all together, and we can have a conversation about hedging our bets both ways before the race may or may not break up. If we look at what happens in real life with a lot of the big sprinters, on courses like this, it is certainly a course that you could kind of say is more tilted toward the sprinter, but could go either way because there is that opportunity, especially up the climbs with 3 now, but we're down to 2 now. Oh, 1 now. There's only 1 left. Okay, so we're still in a pretty big bunch. Based on that, I can't actually see how the likes of Catherine Curry or Vicky Whitelaw or Alice Lethbridge can force the pace enough over the top when you have such a big pack chasing behind. Given the distance to the finish, given the kind of course it is around it, that would have to be a monumental effort, not only just individually, but also working together. I don't see the impetus for that happening. Like, strategically, I just don't see how that is necessarily on the cards. And in fact, I think those riders, and especially Alice Lethbridge, where she could really shine is in a late attack. I think that is a bigger opportunity where everybody is looking at each other and kind of waiting for it to play out. But they can absolutely do damage over the top. They can absolutely force a break. Can they keep that with such a big pack chasing? I'm just not sure it's the course for that. And that's not a slight against any riders, Nathan. It's just the style of course that it is. And when you do have teams like Riot who can get organised, who can chase, it would be a very different story if Catherine Curry wasn't on the same team as Christina Grossman. But if Curry goes up the road just sitting on the wheel of someone and Christina's not too far back, why would she ride? So, we've taken out a major player already in that scenario.
Whitelaw to the front for Sox or Watts. Now, as you can see, Alice Lethbridge was kind of leading things out for them. Tilly Field, though, for second. And, you were mentioning Tilly Field here. I went to go take a look at the best sprinters in this field right now, and I thought for sure that we were going to see the likes of Catherine Curry, yes, is there, 11.2 watts per kilogram. Vicky Whitelaw, 11.9. Alice Lethbridge in a 10 for 15 seconds or so. Obviously, Christina Grossman also in that 11. But I've not watched Tilly race on Zwift much at all. I'm not sure I've commentated on her once, to be honest. She has a 13 watt per kilogram sprint, a full watt per kilogram over anyone else in this pack, actually. Could be a major upset rider when it comes, if she is able to make it all the way to the line.
She's a pretty dynamic rider and she likes to have a little bit of fun on the bike as well. She's got really great bike handling skills. You might think that that's not that relevant in the Zwift world, but actually it really is when it comes to positioning and to comfort, to knowing which wheel to grab. She's got the physiology to back it up. Would struggle on the longer climbs, but we don't have any of those today. But she's got a good bit of power in those legs, and on the even up to about 5-minute climb, I think is where Tilly can be super comfortable. Again, if it does come down to a sprint, we can chat about that toward the back end of the race. But if we look at the capabilities of all of these riders in this front group, we then have to revisit will it come down to a sprint, or is there the chance of a break? I think that there are quite a number of riders who would feel quite confident giving it a tilt in a sprint. And to me, I think that's the way this is heading. Now, inevitably, when I say that, Nathan, somebody will do a hero attack and prove me wrong. I'm fine with that as well.
There are some pretty good TT specialists in here, that's for sure. There are some good threshold riders. And, the reality, we're going to head on over to the B category, but I do want to mention the reality across the board when it comes to this course specifically is that Fuego Flats offers a ton of opportunity to try and make some attacks and get some distance as riders get a little bit more fatigued. Flatter courses like Magnificent 8, actually, in my opinion, unless you have a very long climb of that like 5 to 10 minute or more, you're going to be looking, for me in Zwift racing, you're going to be looking for places where you can punch big orange numbers, get a small little bit of a gap, and get riders to jump across to you. We'll see if any of that starts happening later in the race out here today, or if it does. If a lot of the riders there do put a lot of their chips into the reality of just a sprint and go kind of all in with that. Jumping in with Kate Robinson here again with some of our live cams, as we did see the suffering pick up a little bit here as we've got a whittled down group in the B category. We're going to be jumping in with the C category in just a moment here and see where their racing is at. But this is the situation as riders struggle to hang on to a top 20 spot right now as it's completely strung out behind here, where it looks like one of the cryogen riders trying to come across with Seesaw Race Like a Girl on their wheel. But this is the attack now for the points, second time over the top for their 3 in total on this reverse KOM.
There's Joanne again they've all gone to Ghost for a second. That was a good view. This is certainly the pressure point, isn't it, that we are seeing each lap as they head up to this KOM. And Joanne has got that again. She's been right up there the entire way. We've spoken a fair bit about her fantastic setup as well. But good to see. Oh, no, that wasn't Joanne and her setup. I apologise. Crush Pod, that was the wrong one I jumped in with there. But this is similar to what we just saw happening with the A's, that they push pretty hard over the top, but it does regroup reasonably quickly down the other side as people are ducking in and out of the power tuck. But I always say that does come with a little bit of a warning. You need to make sure that if you are in the power tuck, you come out of it quick enough to respond to anybody who may be laying down an attack or pushing the pace just at the bottom. That's quite a good opportunity for a sneaky little attack, actually, when you are kind of in the end of that power tuck territory, and you can catch some people unawares in that regard. This is a great overhead view, Nathan. Gives us a bit more of an opportunity to see not only how many are in the bunch, but those little gaps that a peer review you don't really get from front on, as well as which riders are quite good at sitting quite well on the wheel, rather than a little bit of a gap in between, and really making the most out of that draft. And I love the
just wanted to jump
camaraderie. They're
in.
all having a bit of a chat.
I just wanted to jump in really quickly here and just show the chase group that's taking place here in the D category, actually. Only 15 seconds back. So they have, there's kind of this interesting situation playing out here in the D category where we have three groups all within less than a half, like 500 meters to 1,000 meters within each other. And, you know, this initial group in the D category that did get away, you know, they might be getting a little bit too comfortable with only 40 seconds back on this group and only 15 back from this group, and it may swell in a moment here. There may be a situation where that initial group that got away is getting, just a little bit too comfy or maybe tired even and don't have enough. And some of the ladies here in this D category, they got a little bit more endurance, may be able to bring this back. And I would say that anyone that's within the top 30 right now are still involved in this race if they're willing to put the effort in, swell this group right here, and maybe bring back that 40 seconds that's up the road.
Yeah, 40 seconds can seem intimidating, but it's actually not too big a gap if everybody does work together. All you need is a bit of a drop in pace at the front and some organisation from the back, and that can come back reasonably quickly. And that's the benefit of having such a long race. There's still 50 kilometres, 50 plus kilometres left to race. Oh, no, for the Ds, a little bit less than that. They're only doing 2 laps, so they've got 58 kilometres, 36 miles. So they're just past the halfway mark on that, but that is still a solid amount of time to go. This is also the point in the race for the Ds where some people will be fatiguing at a far more rapid rate than others, and you will often see some people that have gone pretty well early on in that front group. Once they hit about that hour mark, it will start to change a bit for them, and we might see a bit of a change in the composition of the group simply from that manner. But they are only 34 seconds down now, so they are bringing that back. I think they could rejoin. Apologies for my yawn there too, Nathan. It's 7 o'clock in the morning here in Australia.
A little bit early.
And nobody's brought me a coffee yet.
Working on it. Virtual coffee on its way. We did just see Stidham here in the C category. We are jumping across to them right now. Take it down for the DDC team up into the top of the Queen of the Mountain. DDC Xena with Torelli right on the wheel here. It looks like Howland from Revo Vixens as well as the Revo Comets with Overmer. Now, Overmo coming into that 62 kilometers per hour. All of them getting into the Super Tuck as the Ionian comes to the front. Crash Pod there as well. It looks like Galaxy. Julia from Crush Pod now up and over the top. TFC still involved, it looks like. TFC Storm with Thomas, the Ionian Chicas, and the Revo team as well. Coalition in there, as you do see Jay there from Coalition with the purple kit coming on through on the right-hand side. The Vikings still involved as well, as we see one of the Vikings kits now making their way down this, what would be the forward Queen of the Mountain if they were going up it. And it's one of the steepest sections out on Watopia as the C category now make their way through. They're halfway through their second lap. This is going to be 2-lap race, so they're into the back end of their race here. And now some of the deciding moments are about to happen. No more serious climbs ahead of them here, Kate. So this is going to be some of the sections now where riders start to think about, can I get away? What can I do if I don't want a sprint situation?
Yeah, and that is a tough position to be in. When you don't want a sprint situation and you do know that it is a fairly flat, uneventful, if we could call it that, course ahead. But there are opportunities. You certainly just have to, it's all about the timing. And if you can monitor who is at the front And an interesting way to do it also in the Zwift world that you can't in IRL is to have a camera view similar to what we're looking at the moment, or one of the views where you can see the broader pack and where everybody is placed rather than just looking at you. And you can also, of course, do that by looking at the team list over on the right-hand side. And you can take your time to attack at exactly the right spots when you might notice that somebody has just ducked toward the back of the pack, and really keep an eye on it in that regard, and be quite smart in your timing of any. But that's also a lot to think about when you are racing, and at this point in a race, you're often getting a little bit fatigued physically and mentally, so that can be a bit of a challenge. But that's where having a really good DS in the team car, Nathan, will go a really long way to be able to remind you of those things and to be able to focus on the racing. So I've got our segment points totals up. Danny Torelli, we've seen her racing exceptionally well this year, actually, so not surprising to see her name up there, sitting in second at the moment with 12 points, and Stidham with points. So it's good to remember that this is a points scoring race, as most of the races in Zwift are, different to a World Championship or an Oceania or such. And so all of these segments do count, as well as that final.
15, 12, and 10 here. Now a little bit of an update just coming through, and it looks like Torelli here did grab some more points for her team at 19 points. Stidham, we did see her come to the top just a moment ago of the Queen of the Mountain and grabbed a solid 5 points. So that looks like her update there to second currently overall. Held is sitting at 12. It looks like Kohlberg at 8. Looks like Howland, good to see Howland out there at 7 points, with Northway at 7 as well. Van de Rack 3 points. Porter. And then Beth York, long standing, used to do commentary actually with us here. That's 2 points, riding for that Vixens team. She's been around from the beginning, was involved in a lot of the early esports, and good to see her out here racing with the top 10 in the points currently for this team championship. Let's go ahead and take a look across the board though as well for all the categories and where things stand. Vicky Whitelaw, you talked a lot about Vicky today and her most likely ramping things up, and she's showing how it's ramping up in the points out there today with 22. Lethbridge. Tilly, we talked about having a 13 watt per kilogram sprint, and showing that next to one of the top esports riders, Alice Lethbridge, at 18 and 18. Irish is there with 19. Embring at 8. Looks like Daniela Estrate showing up today. Good to see her back out there racing at 3 points. A little bit of an update here, it looks like. Grossman here at 3 as well. Philip there at 2, and Catherine Curry at 2. This is telling a story to me, though, with Grossman at 3 points, that perhaps she is out here for the win because she can go toe-to-toe with any of these sprinters.
And it does paint a good picture, doesn't it? Because when we're looking at the people who are going over the QOMs and the sprints, and we can look at that and think, gee, they're really invested in getting a break here. But I think in the case of someone like Tilly Field, I don't imagine that she is going for those points at the top to try and force a break, but more simply to accrue some points. And so then if you have a rider like Grossman just sitting back and following wheels, it is, as you say, it is shaping up to look like it will come down to a sprint, and it looks like Grossman is certainly ready for that. Also, the fact that Catherine Curry hasn't done anything over those QOMs, to me, also highlights the fact that they are certainly on a team effort, and they are working toward that final sprint, because otherwise Catherine Curry, we would see her up the front over those QOMs, because that would be the opportunity for her. Riot are one of the teams out here, without a doubt, Nathan, that strategically are all over it. They do race exceptionally well as a team, and they do spend the time and effort not only talking about the team strategy, but really also getting on the same page. And they do make sure that their team lineup is based around who is prepared to be in it for the team, and they're not just out there for themselves. So Anna Russell has done an amazing job with Riot, not just racing, but also as a DS with her whiteboard, no doubt, in bringing these riders really up to scratch with the different strategies, and also working very well as a team. So the moment that you see something like that, you could think, Nathan, oh, gee, they're not on a lot of points, that they don't have good legs. But I think that we know enough about these riders now to know that it's actually a bit of a red flag for the other teams when you see that they haven't accrued a lot of points. They're just sitting in, looking after themselves and waiting for that opportunity at the back end of the race.
Wanted to highlight something here real quickly from the D category. We'll bring them into picture and hold on with the C's for their sprint. But in the lower right-hand corner right now, we do see Sams, Ali, as well as Trish Cal from the Llamas, McBride, Megan M, and a Revo Dancers rider with the name M, and Jen from the Blitz and Blaze, as well as Artissa, all on the attack over the top of their reverse Queen of the Mountain right now. And it does look like Sam's there from the CMEA Belicious is on the attack out of New Zealand. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll be jumping with them for their reverse Queen of the Mountain. Give you a good idea right here of what the points currently are for that D category. But as the C's are about to make their sprint, we're going to stick with them and get an idea of how this is going to play out, as this is the current situation with Torelli leading things on the sprint board right now. Stidham took down the last points, but here they go into their kick, and it is going to be Ella here from Kirschmer Cycling leading out, now Held from Galaxy. They're up into 6 watts per kilogram. The draft Dean power up here now being used by a lot of the riders. NZ Bro there with Charleston over the top now. Will she hold on for the points? Where is Torelli? Not seeing her involved at all, actually. I think the Xena rider is going to just let this go. It's going to be NZ Bro now, easily taking that one down. Verma, though, from Revo. Later in this race here, I'm starting to sense that some of the riders here trusting for a final sprint and the big points across the line. But some of these points now for the 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 being picked up by some of the names that are not on that board at all just yet. So there is a ton of points, though, up for offer across the finish line. So maybe at this point, that 5 points, it isn't too much of a carrot to chase any longer for some of these bigger sprinters in this C field.
Now, that was a pretty impressive sprint from Emma Porter. She really laid it down there. Torelli looked as though she got caught a bit unawares and a little gap opened up in front of her. It is all coming back together nicely as a big bunch, so she doesn't need to worry about that too much. But they're only at the halfway mark. Their ETA is about 2 hours and 15 minutes for the race, so they do still, anybody getting some tired legs, and I think we could highlight the entire pack when we say that, they certainly need to be quite smart where they use their little bursts of energy coming up, and perhaps for Torelli, that was a good opportunity for her, knowing that she's got a number of points to just look after herself and not do anything too much. She's sitting at the back, though, our DDC Xena rider. I do want to see her move a little bit further up, which she is doing as we speak, which is good to see. It's an orange and purple jersey, and we can see that Torelli's just moved back up toward the front. The back of the bunch is a very dangerous place to be at this point in the race. There will be inevitably some people who are starting to fatigue at quite a rapid rate, just given that this isn't a short race by any standards, but certainly in the Zwift world, most of the races are either finished by now or coming to an end fairly quickly. So to just be at the halfway mark, we know that there will be some people who are starting to tire out a little bit. And something we spoke about before, Nathan, we were talking about whether it would come down to a sprint or there's some exceptionally good climbers. They could have an opportunity. So often it's not about the course that they're on. It's actually about the dynamics of the bunch that they're in. And when you only have 1 or 2 exceptionally good climbers, for example, really stand out, then the balance of power certainly lays with the flatland riders and the big bunch that becomes a part of that. So that is what we are seeing for the most part across the grades. The Ds were having a little bit more of a split up that last KOM or QOM, but that in a moment we'll go back to those. But for now, certainly the A, B and C, we're seeing a really similar pattern play out where a few riders are making little breaks and pushing it. But it is all coming back together and still reasonably large front groups.
Now, taking a look over here at the D category, it does look like we've got some serious attacks taking place in the back end of this race right now. We did see a moment ago Belicious here with Sam's now making a move. That did get caught by what looks to be a group of 5 riders. Now coming across it is going to be McBride from the Bobcats and the herd team also just getting involved. This is going to be your top 7. So we got a group of 7 off the front. No women's land here with M from the Revo Dancers here, 20 seconds back or so, being chased hard by Jen here from the Blitzen Babes. This has been decimated. The last time we checked in here, there were 3 groups chasing each other, all within 40 to 15 seconds of each other. And now at this point, those groups have been splintered by that reverse Queen of the Mountain, actually, the second time over the top. There's not a whole lot of racing left in front of these ladies at this point, and this is make it or break it, do or die moments here. Top 10 situation here, what we saw from Jen, but she's going to have to really push, not be caught by that group. And it looks like it's going to be Jay, the A team, now making a move out of Canada, holding tight here is going to be Sams, who made those pushes over the top of the Queen of the Mountain out of New Zealand. Allie there from the Blitz and Babes coming across. The Bobcats need to get on terms here, and it's going to be the Arctic Vixens also just sitting here trying to come across a 2.4. McBride does make it to that chase group of 3. They're going to have to get organized here as they're starting to walk way up ahead.
And can I just have a bit of a giggle at Jay, the A team? That's a fantastic ride. I love that they all give themselves such random names. Her name is Jill. I don't know what Jill's surname is, but good on you, Jill. That's a little bit of fun. This is messy. This is not a fun back end of the race at all. When we look at the difference between some of the other categories, and we have to remember that they are riding on longer courses, so 3 laps for the A's and the B's. The C's and the D's, they have 2 laps. So that second QOM is really the big opportunity to split it up. They took the opportunity and now they are just all trying to hang on. Even this front group, absent of a giant attack, a push of pace at the front from Jill and Jay, the A team. That's such a great name. And look at how it is breaking up, Nathan. At this point in the race, when attacks happen, but they've been out on the bike for quite a while, a small attack can have a very big impact. And the riders need to keep exceptionally alert. Megan from the Drafting Dinos is making her way back on. She will be very relieved once she does get to the back of this group. It is starting to regroup a little bit amongst this small cohort at the front. There's only 7 of them. They do have 58 kilometres, so they've got 17K left to go. But it is reasonably uneventful in terms of terrain, a few little lumps. But this is where there'll certainly be some cat and mouse strategies happening over the next 17K, Nathan. And good to see them really giving it a crack and making sure the race is interesting. And if you cast your eye up to the top right of screen in that little map, you can see that the next blob of dots is a fair way back now. So this is certainly shaping up to be that final small group that is going to head toward the finish.
And looking at the points situation here in the D category, it's I'm wondering what's happening with this front group versus what has happened throughout the entirety of the race. It does look like Johnson, Hogsberg, McBride, Mouser, Kripe, Nelson, Sams, Gravel, Calamaras, and Artisa. Now, those aren't all names that are necessarily in this front group, though, interesting enough. So some of the riders that were a part of the large group prior to this split grabbed a ton of points, actually, leading up to this section. Now, there's also fastest through segment, though, today, which is not per lap. It's for the fastest through segment for the entirety of the race. So some of these points may be coming from that FTS as well, from groups that are not even close to the front of the race. Especially within the D category, we may have riders that have a solid, very high-powered sprint that may have grabbed some of those points. But in the back end of the race, there is going to be a lot of lull, I think, looking forward to the scoring when it comes to the finish line. Because for the points here, all riders will score points for finishing. Points will be awarded in descending order, with first place being awarded 36 points, second place 35, etc., from the first finisher to the last. So the number of points given to first place will be adjusted to ensure all riders that finish receive points. So if there's 262 riders, first place, it looks like, is going to get 262 points. All riders who complete the distance will receive points, but only the top 3 finishers will count towards the team's point totals. So top 3 from a team, lots of points up for grabs across the finish line. So I have a feeling that's why we may see this lull later in the race.
Oh, isn't that an interesting, though, how you can potentially attack the race given those rules? So as long as the rider finishes, the team can get those points from those intermediates. So you'll definitely have some just attacking that fastest through segment and trying to accrue the points. And any of the teams who have sat down and had a really good think about it will have some good strategies around exactly how to accrue the most number of points, rather than it being just about them being visible the whole time. And this happens quite often. We'll be commentating and we won't mention someone's name at all, but then the points table pops up and the names on the points table are quite different to the animators we've seen at the front of the race. And that is because, especially with the fastest through segment, they can achieve that anywhere in the bunch and anywhere in the race. They certainly don't have to be the first over the line in order to do that.
A little bit of a push here coming from the Bobcats now with McBride. Over the top, it's going to be Sam's there from the CMEA team for the Belicious. And, this sprint section might not only be for these points. You could see a situation here where this sets up for a late attack with only what do we have left here to go? 14K to go, and a lot of flat sections. 2 off the front could work together if they're the strongest riders. It does look like the CMAB's team here with Sam's is going to make this move and grab a solid 5 points across the line. It's going to be 4 there for McBride. Allie coming on through with a power up there, grabbing 3. Megan, and then it's going to be Trish Cal, followed closely by Jay the A team from Galaxy.
I am a very big fan of using intermediate sprints as a springboard for a very good attack. Usually it's not the rider who goes for the sprint, but a rider who may come across in second or just with the move. It is a pretty small group though, so somebody would have to have a fair bit of confidence for the rest of the race to launch an attack over the top of that. Interestingly, the heart rates aren't as high as perhaps we would imagine at this point in the race. McBride, 154, that's not the highs of the 170s we were seeing in that first lap of the race. Of course, they are fresher in that first lap. But I think that this group is going to, for the most part, stay together for the next 10 odd kilometres is my guess, and before they do start to get animated a bit toward that final sprint.
The attacks come. This is what I'm really loving about this D category. We call it the lowest category, right? But what you said earlier about the reality of these watts per kilogram being the leveling playing field, that they're all at the same level and they're pushing in the same experience of effort, right? Like the efforts that they're throwing down from their personal experience are just as high as those that the C's, the B's, and the A categories. And the late attacks here within this whittled down group are so absolutely awesome to watch. I mean, they're not messing around, these ladies. They are no holds barred, throwing haymakers right now, trying to demolish this pack at this point.
Yeah, everybody's out there kind of with a nothing to lose kind of attitude, which always makes it a little bit exciting. Certainly a bit different to what we're seeing in some of the other categories. In saying that, they are not a final, so we will see what might happen coming into that final QOM, what happens over the top of that. They are with 7. No, you can see nobody's necessarily taking too much responsibility. You could look at the speed and think they're doing all right at around 34, 35k an hour. But if we look at their watts per kg, they're mostly just sitting under 2 as they're kind of ticking along here. It would be a good opportunity for somebody to give a little bit of distance at the back, like a length or 2, Nathan, and then just hit them quite hard and accelerate and sprint past. But that is said not understanding how fatigued they may be at this point in the race. So it is very easy, the theory of saying that is how it could work. There's not a lot of teams together here. So that's also the other consideration, that there's not the factor where there's a team with 2 or 3 riders and they can all play off each other. They are all solo players amongst the 7, which in itself is pretty cool, isn't it, to have 7 different teams represented in the final. And this is a very big field of D category riders. If you go into Zwift Power and you're scrolling, you have to keep scrolling to get down to the bottom of that group. There are a couple of hundred just in the D category alone.
I'm going to jump on over to the C category as they are into their final few kilometers here at this point. All that's left is Ocean Boulevard and right on into a sprint situation. Large group coming into the sprint. I don't think we're going to see any breakaway situations when it comes to a long, not much room is going to be given to them. They may give a last 1K or last 3K attempt. We could see that taking place with any of the riders that are not super interested in a traditional all-out sprint. It'd be kind of cool to see perhaps a last-ditch effort, but it looks like we're taking about 35-ish to the line here as the Trinell here from the KISS Racing team out of the US of A sits in the pack at 163 beats per minute. Ocean Boulevard descent, Ocean Boulevard, and a climb of 3%, and right on in to the sprints right next to where they started at the docks here. And the Pens in Watopia, Magnificent 8, 2 laps. The C's are about to complete their Team Fearless Championships right now. Alien Chicas, SZ, DDC, a lot of the teams still involved here. It's anybody's race at this point.
This is a really cool bunch actually coming into this final sprint. It's much bigger than we'll often see in the community leagues, simply by the fact that there are so many riders entered in this race to still be in the hunt. Now, you could look at this bunch and think that they haven't raced too hard throughout this event, this 54K so far, but in fact, they just have such a deep field that there are actually a lot of riders who lined up. So this is still very much a whittled down front pack. I'm sitting in Zwift Power, Nathan, and I'm taking a look at the current heart rate. And for the most part, everybody is reasonably chilled. So Trinell at the moment, we can see her heart rate is sitting just under 150. That's pretty common across the board. There's a couple who look to be hanging on by the skin of their teeth a little bit more, but for the most part, it seems like everybody is just jockeying and really getting ready for this final blast. Based on the heart rates, I would also say, and also the powers that they're putting out, Nathan, I reckon there could be opportunity for an opportunistic late attack for a couple of the riders who aren't necessarily the lead sprinters amongst such a big group. So if anybody is game, the next 1 or 2 kilometres will be the place to do that.
One last attack opportunity is all that's left for these riders, as you're saying there, Kate. We'll see if they're able to make that happen. Torelli, I think, the name to really watch out for here in this C category. I'm looking at the watt per kilogram, and so far she's proven herself over and over again when it comes to the points, being at the top of it there. 11.4 solid kick, as well as Amelia Banks. Watch out for Banks there from the Crush Pod team, also with a solid 11 watt per kilogram kick. Allison Held from Galaxy has a 10.7, as well as a 10.1 here coming from Jillian Howland. Howland, though, Jillian there from that Absquate Finesse team, know her in real life as well. She is a very savvy Zwifter. Watch out for her. She's been involved in the Zwift Racing League with a lot of top 10 finishes. If Jillian could take this down, it'd be a huge result for her. So we'll see if she's got something special in the legs out here today. I'm also going to mention Helen Kohlberg from the Alien Chicas. She could be here across the line for a top 5, even a win with the kind of sprint that she's got. A very savvy rider, Emma Porter, from the EDZ Bro Charleston. We saw her take down a sprint just a few moments ago. And, she doesn't have the 11 plus watt per kilogram, but if you know what you're doing and you know how to ride a wheel, you got the right power up. 9 can get it done here. Don't count Porter out.
I'm going to throw another one out there. Whitney Stidham from DDC. She's my dark horse today. We can see her there just hanging out. She was on our left of screen. She's sitting in a pretty good position. She's very close to Helen Kohlberg that we just spoke about before. On paper, it is very hard to go past the likes of Torelli or Banks. We know that Torelli does have good legs today. Perhaps a slight question mark over whether in the last sprint she was foxing and purposefully not putting in too much effort, or whether she has actually started to fatigue there. We're never quite sure with the sprinters which one it may be, and sometimes in real life you can get a bit of an insight into their body language to get a bit of an understanding of that. But otherwise, no. Looks like we've got a bit of an attack happening here. The drop of the power up, Nathan. Maddie from Crush Pod, she is making the move for this late attack that we talked about, an opportunistic move, but she has got a gap immediately. 2 seconds.
Nobody's doing
the level
anything.
that she is attacking.
4-2. Coalition. They're not
Yeah.
making it happen here. This 3.4, if she can hold on. Now this pack is going to start ramping in just a moment. And if they keep it within 5, that might not be done here. But Kate, this might stick.
That was brilliant timing, and she really caught them unawares. And if we do look at the right of screen, this is great for anybody watching at home. You can really tell, even without looking at the picture, what is happening in terms of the chase. Because Maddie, she is pushing out around 4 watts per kg. The chasing pack is less than that. The gap is ever so slightly creeping open again, now at 4 seconds. It started at 2. Can Maddie keep this going? That is the question. It will be as much about whether she can keep the power on the pedals as it is about the chasing pack. It's going to be tight, Nathan.
Oh, I think they're going to catch her, though. They're starting to ramp up here at this point, and she's got to have one more kick to the line. But here comes DeVito now up over the top. Stidham, your lady, the call-out, the woman there. But it's going to be Taylor from DDC leading it out with a feather power-up. They're going to catch Maddie. It was a great valiant effort, but not going to be happening now. Julian Holland, we called her out there. Will she be able to make it here for the Revo Vixen? But it looks like it's going to be Torelli over the top with an arrow power-up. Perhaps DDC Zena maybe going to go 1, 2, 3. Crushbot coming in there. I'm not sure who took that down between the three of them when it comes to a podium. Well, Torelli took it down, but I mean for the top podium spots. But yeah, what a kick there from Torelli, Kate.
That was Whitney Stidham that rolled over the top of her at the finish there, Nathan. If you
Did Stidham take it? Did Stidham take it?
She took it. We will have to look at the replay. But I was, as my dark horse pick, I had my eye very closely on her. That was a brilliant sprint from those ladies, and we will get a look at what happened again there on a bit of a replay. We're just over looking at that now. So take a look at this, Nathan. The power-ups dropped at the perfect time, but look at the DDC riders, all 3 of them accelerating with perfect timing and precision.
Oh, it was Stidham. You were right. I put Torelli on, but it was Stidham at the front. Let's take a look here real quickly here. I want to see, did Crush Pod? I mean, we'll get results in a second here, but the Crush Pod rider.
It does look like she may have come.
If you look at the rider nearby list, though, that may have been a 4th because you look at right as they cross the line right here. Northway, I think, just with that orange Tron wheel, maybe held on there with Sandra. But we'll take a look at the results here in just a moment. We're going to jump back in with the D category and the A category. The A category riders here are just getting into their final. Queen of the Mountain, reverse climb there. Trish there from Ravon, making a little bit of a move. Has this been whittled down? My question is Christina Grossman still in this pack, and has she been keeping the watts per kilogram low? Is going to be very telltale is what's going to be happening here. Tilly's still here with a pretty solid 174, 346 as they get and look at all of the feather power-ups. Final time over the Queen of the Mountain here. What a moment here for the A category.
Well, Grossman is still there. She is still sitting, really positioned right up the front there. It looks to me like she's really looking after herself. Tilly Field as well. up there, but not pushing too hard at the front. This is an excellent position for the sprinters in the race. Catherine Curry, I think she is absolutely on constable duty, making sure that nothing gets away so that Grossman can still be there at the end. She's just up the front, making sure she can follow any of those wheels. Tilly Field, she is making her way up now too. She has done an exceptionally good job of holding the right wheel throughout this race. She never really puts her head in the wind until it counts for those points, but she has made sure she is on the side of any gaps that have opened up, and she's a fantastic job doing that. Looking at this overhead, Nathan, I cannot see a break forming over the top here as we did in that D category with a really whittled down front group. I think we have too many riders en masse here. The question is, how far up is Grossman? And she is still in that slightly second pack, but only a second off. She is really, really well positioned, and she has Catherine Curry to sit at the front and control the pace for her to bring that all back together if that's what Riot are aiming for. If Grossman says she does have the legs today, she just needs to look after herself, grab a wheel here, not put herself in the wind too much, and trust that this group will bring her back to the front.
Lethbridge was at the front just a moment ago. She's still here. Lethbridge does not want to sprint, it looks like here. She continues to press this, but as it swells behind here, there was a moment there, Kate, that I was like, is this going to stick? And even now, as they start to roll into this downhill with some speed, and some of these ladies behind, they're going to sit up and look for that breather moment on the second half here, maybe. But again, the speed on the downhill with a large pack like this, just going to be too much, I think. I think you're right. This is going to come down to a large group sprint situation. Not to take anything away from Lethbridge, she gave it a go at 6 plus 7, 8, even up into 10 watt per kilogram as they came over that really sharp section. There was a little bit of a gap. We saw 8 riders off the front, but it was only 2 to 3 seconds. It's come all back together. They've controlled it well here with Team Riot, and I think they're really looking to set up Grossman, as well as a few of the other teams. Aeonian got back involved here to keep things together. I think Daniela Strate is still here. She's got a solid sprint. WLC is still involved, obviously, as well. So lots of these big names that have the sprinters here have not been able to get left off. But I think Lethbridge here, she may just be involved here and really interested in these points. I think Grossman here for the first time sticking her nose in the wind a little bit. No, it's going to be Curry, from Team Riot. That's going to take those over the top.
What a great team strategy from them too, to make sure that they're both getting points. But Grossman is quite well positioned now. She has moved up quite a significant amount, so she's in a really good position now. And as we were talking about earlier, Nathan, so much about the riders in the bunch rather than the course itself. So Alice Lethbridge, very classy rider. This is a course that would suit her, but amongst a bunch that is, a lot of the teams will be motivated for the sprint. It is a very difficult ask for anybody to duck away solo. So I think Lethbridge has put herself in a very good position to date. I also think, as we talked about in the other categories, there is still a very good possibility of a later breakaway. But I do think realistically, Nathan, that the next 10 to 15K is a bit of a dead zone in terms of attacks can often just use a lot of energy but not be particularly helpful in forcing an outcome. So we'll see how they all come back together at the bottom here and see how everybody's feeling. But good to see some sprinters up there, and certainly Tilly Field is having an exceptionally good day, especially for a rider, Nathan, who you haven't even seen in Zwift before. So there's a new name for you to put on your list of riders to watch.
She takes down the win out here today. She's definitely going to be not just on the radar, but on the podium, and pretty awesome to see here. Field sitting at the back, playing it smart here from WLC. Great on her. I hear that there's a breakaway situation happening in the D category. Let's head on right over there. Great to see this, as there's now 4 riders. McBride trying to hang on here. There's gal here from the Llamas off the back. Your kit not making it looks like here. Will she come across? Kate, she's going to need some extra power from the No Dramas kit here at this point. See what's going to happen now as Tessa now looking to go across to McBride. 2 seconds, and there's 4 working. It looks like they're working well together up ahead with almost 3 watts per kilogram. And again, at the D category at 2.5 watts per kilogram, it tends to be about their threshold. They're over threshold at the front here.
Yeah, this is a very dangerous move, but equally for the riders in the pack, they do still have a bit of distance to go, just 3 and a bit kilometres at threshold. That could feel like it would be about 300 kilometres when you're pushing that hard. A couple of seconds back to Tessa. The problem is that the 3 of them aren't in a good pack yet, but look, they are coming back, Nathan. And you know what? Trish in the No Drama Llama jersey, the team is called Llama Stay. So for any yoga fans out there, I think that, she'd be pretty zen, pretty chill, not stressing out too much about getting back on, but just doing what she has to do. Still 2 seconds. 2 seconds in one way is nothing, but it's like that band, isn't it? If you can't quite get there, it may as well be 20 seconds. So the next kilometre or so will really be the pushing point for them to see whether they can bring that back at all. Otherwise, we're looking at a sprint from 4. So the C's and D's have certainly put on a bit of a show today, Nathan, and really pushed the pace and kept it exciting the whole way.
Yeah, it's been absolutely awesome to see what they've been up to here. And now with the 4-second gap going into the final 2.5 kilometers or so, I have a feeling that Jay from the A team as well as Sam's here working well. There's this is not bunched up, as you can see. They're rotating a little bit, which tells me they're all putting in a little bit of work. 5 seconds back now. Arctic Fixes and the Llamas here not going to be able to make this happen, it seems like, as it's going to be CMA. The A-Team Galaxy rider there with Jay, Megan M from the Dinos, as well as Allie from the Blitz and Babes. That's going to be your 4 to the line in this D category right now.
This is an opportunity to kind of check out your breakaway companions or your bunch companions and see where everybody's at. It's a very different dynamic sprinting from 4 than it is sprinting from a bigger bunch. And as the 4 of them are across the road, nobody wanting to take responsibility, particularly over any of the other riders. Again, we don't have any teammates amongst this 4, so they are all riding individually, and they will all have to choose their own path. But if we do take a look at on paper who we might choose in this kind of bunch sprint, Nathan, it's certainly, I would have said if Trish was there from the Llamas, that she would be the one that we would be looking at. But Nikki Sames from CMA, Belicious, she is probably our more powerful rider amongst this 4. So we'll just have to see whether she plays it right. But Jill, the A-Team, she has been pushing the pace for the whole lap on this. In fact, she was definitely the catalyst to get the breakaway here and has been whittling it down ever since with some effort. So I hope she takes a little bit of a breather before the final kilometre, which isn't too far away now, to make sure that she's still got some matches left for that final sprint.
We were seeing in the lower right-hand corner just a moment ago, Catherine Curry from Team Riot was on the attack in the Fuego Flats. Great section to give it a go. I think that we may see some dynamic attacks coming from Team Riot. They're very well known for obviously being the team of the whiteboard and Anna Russell. So I have a feeling that knowing the duration of this race being long enough that you could see some orange numbers try and get away, be on the watch out for that. They're about to get into their final sprint in the Fuego Flats for some points, but we've got the D category in front of us, and they're about to go into their final sprint for the race overall. It's going to be Megan M from the Dinos here leading things out at 2.8 there. J to A team here now from Galaxy out of Canada sitting on that wheel at 1.8, trying to play it smart in the draft. Now up in the 4.6, looks like Megan here is looking to just break this group rather than set it up for a kick to the line.
And Megan Mouse is very well. This is a little bit tough section though. Time kick up only 2
Get a little bit of breakup here from you, Kate. I'm going to
And
take over on the commentary for just a moment as we wait for the internet here to get us a little bit better out of there. It lands down under for just a second as Megan now kicks up into 4.4 watts per kilogram with that feather power up. I think she may be able to make this happen. Kate, I think I got you back. You're good to go. And it looks like Sam's here now
good.
with 9.9 over the top.
Yeah, Megan Mouser did a great job over that last difficult section, but Nikki Sames called this. Nathan, this is almost 2 from 2. So come on, Sames. This is a fantastic sprint from the Aussie rider from Cycling Mums Australia. That is what the CMA stands for. Wheels on, Ali from the Blitz and Babes coming fast, but Nikki Sames for the win in the D category. Fantastic. Jill J, the A team, he had a cracking ride and was largely responsible for a lot of the breakup at the back end there. So big kudos to her, but well done to Nikki Sames in taking that sprint in the final there. We're back to the A's now, Nathan, and look, the pace has been on to the point where we are in a much reduced group than what we saw earlier in the race. But we do still have some of the sprinters in there, and it is still a big enough bunch that with only 14 kilometres left to go, we can certainly start to talk about what this may look like for Grossman in particular, and also the new Aussie upstart for you, Tilly Field, is also in a really great position, has been riding sensationally all day. But I will say, Nathan, that I think from a strategic point of view, Christina Grossman and the Riot team, thanks to Anna's whiteboard, in no small part, I am sure, have strategically played it perfectly, because Grossman has not wasted an ounce of energy. And in fact, up that last climb, she dropped back a group in order, I believe, watching how it played out, to save her legs and to make sure that she got over the top in the best shape possible. So I think that it takes a lot of confidence to be able to do that, to climb, to start at the front of a climb and drop back and grab a wheel on the way past. So Christina Grossman, for me, Nathan, is really lining up as the one to beat.
I have to agree 100% with that. Grossman has kept it quiet, it looks like, for most of the race. We did see her in the Fuego Flats short sprint taking down a third place over the top with that. Looking through a bunch of that. Thank you so much. I'm getting some more information coming through from Martin from WTRL here this entire time. Tons of support for this event. Huge thank you, WTRL. The top 10 with their points, I'm being told here at this point, is going to be Whitney Stidham, actually, this is from the what we just saw with some of the sprints that are about to come on through for the finished riders. Got it. So a bunch of the points that were taken down overall for those who have finished are what we're getting through here. It looks like Whitney Stidham in that C category ended up with a huge amount of points there at 303. Daniela Torelli, though, with 306, actually. So as we get this all for the results coming on through, we'll update you with the results points at the end of the day for the teams as well as individuals in just a few moments. A category we're looking at. The B category is also out on course, and we can jump in with them as well. We'll get some cool side-by-sides going here as we are down to just 2 events.
This is a really exciting bunch coming to the finish here. I loved that the first sprint that we saw for the day with Whitney Stidham taking the win. I thought that was a sensational ride from her. But we've got really impressive sprinters in here. A rider that we have not spoken about at Nathan is Maria Frisk. She is from Swedish Zwifters, and they've got a strong team out there. Now, she has got a whopping 12.1 watts per kg, 15 second. So that is certainly something that a lot of people would envy. The fact that we haven't spoken about her at all today, I would say, is a very good sign of how she may be faring, and the fact that she has just been hiding in place there. So there is somebody else to watch. Apologies, Maria. We've now called you out. So anybody watching the broadcast while they're racing has now got a highlighter over your name, but I'm sure they would have done their homework.
Hey, there's two
beforehand.
three riders, excuse me, that I would say are all in that same conversation. One rider for the longest time that I have seen as one of the cagiest riders, as well as a rider who, to be honest, she has straight up said publicly, I ride for myself. Like she actually like, and like, as far as like a final result is I think what she was getting at. And she rides very cagey, very smart. Daniela Estrate has a 10 watt per kilogram sprint. It's not the highest here. But if we were going to look at her MPA or whatever, how much energy that's been put out into this race, it's 3.1 watts per kilogram, the lowest, and almost a 3 watt per kilogram or point, tenths of a watt per kilogram less than everyone else in this front pack right now. No one else is even close to how low. Over a 2 hour, we're looking at 2:02, an estimated finishing time here. Over that amount of a race here, Daniela Estrate seems to have put out as little as possible, actually. So this is going to be really interesting to see if that is going to pay off at the end of this race. A couple other names, though. 3-3 there from Christina Grossman. We said that she's kept it pretty quiet, and I think that shows exactly that.
And that's a really good point, because at this point in the race, it doesn't really matter necessarily what their 15-second powers are. It is a good indicator of what they're capable of when they're fresh. But we're talking about an 87-kilometre, 54-mile race here. We're not talking about the conditions in which a lot of these riders will have earned those power numbers that we can see in Zwift Power. So this is a little bit of a different environment. It does show us who is potentially the sharpest, but it is good to go and look at the kind of race they have had so far. It is shaping up as a finish for these sprinters that we have been speaking about. And we spoke about it earlier. We can't go past Vicky Whitelaw, who had a really great watts per kg. And we also know that with her background in elite racing and Pro Tour, wasn't Pro Tour for the women back then, but the equivalent level of what it was at the time, she certainly has the staying power to still be fresh 87 kilometres into this race. So as they are all jockeying, I am very interested to see if there's any teams that might make a bit of a last-ditch effort, or whether they will in fact just ride it into the finish and leave it in the hands of a handful. There is literally a handful of riders who could take it away here. Or could we perhaps see, Nathan, somebody jumping out of the pack completely unbeknownst to anybody, if we're looking at these 15-second powers, and take them by surprise?
Take a look at both of the categories at this point. It's a great point, that you're making there about just how long this race is, and the reality that, look, you might have a solid kick when you're fresh. You might have, that 13, that 12. Those are the all-time best, their personal best. That could have been a one-lapper of the volcano, right? That could have been them just going for a sprint section in some event somewhere that they were super, super fresh in. This is a very different story. They have been over the top of the reverse Queen of the Mountain 3 times at 6 watts per kilogram. The amount of stores of energy that are left in their legs for that high-powered kick, turn of speed, is not going to be nearly the same. The smart, the cagey rider, as well as a rider who just has that efficiency and that endurance. What in coaching we call it decoupling, the ability to keep that heart rate very low at the same power all the way through. Those are going to be the riders that are going to have still a solid kick to the line. It's also maybe not going to end up in a sprint situation, perhaps with a last-ditch effort with 1K to go. That little 3%er, we saw danger mode for both the D and the C category just a moment ago. So we could see somebody take advantage of how tired some of these riders may be late in the race as well. So there's a lot of story to be told still here.
There is, and it is a really good indicator actually when you're looking at heart rates at this point in a race, because you do hit that line, that fatigue line, where no matter what speed you're going, your heart rate sort of dropping anymore. So if you do see a rider whose heart rate is still dropping fairly conservatively down into the 140s or what have you, it's a pretty good indicator that they're still feeling pretty fresh when it comes to how the amount of effort they've expended so far in the race. Tilly Field, I have a little bit of a worry about her efficiency through the race, Nathan. She has ridden incredibly well, but it hasn't been super efficient in terms of coming to the finish as fresh as perhaps some of the others. Now, that being said, the name of the game,
What was that?
certainly, and the strategy.
Sorry,
What's going on with the
well,
chatting?
yeah. What's the chat? Like Irish is like talking about 10-second polls. Like this isn't a TTT. Like what could possibly be talked about there amongst this group that they would want to be doing 10-second polls? I wonder from that rave team, because is this 30 seconds in their head a danger from any riders here behind? I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, any
nah.
rider
Vicky comes in and says, nah.
That's pretty funny.
No, thanks. Oh, man. Oh, okay. So Irish is saying you think you guys are not. Oh, okay. So I think they got caught by Irish and a few others that were behind. And she was saying 10-second. Okay. I'm not sure what happened there, but I know Irish was off the back for a little while there. So good on her for making that catch. And I love that Vicky's like, no, we're not doing anything like that right now. Last little climb before they hit Ocean Boulevard. About to happen here, Kate, as we head into the final 8K.
Geez, that's a little bit funny when they're starting to get a little bit feisty toward the back end. Vicky is very funny, and that's probably the most Australian thing you could ever say. Respond with yeah, nah. So repping the Aussie flag there. Thanks, Vicky. Alice Lethbridge, we've spoken a lot about her because she has been sensational. Now, we've also said it's a largely flat course running into this final now. They're only 5.5 kilometres out. But damned if she isn't making every single little percentage upwards count. Only 2% here, but she is absolutely on the march to make some legs hurt for that. I don't think she'll be able to forge a break up here. There's just simply too strong a chasing pack. But absolute kudos to her for putting herself in the very best of positions to succeed. Grossman
she's trying to put Grossman off the back here. I think that's what's going on here. Barbara Fish does get smashed up a little bit here, it looks like, and is going to be off the back. Teresa also maybe from the BBB team. But I have a feeling that this was a move to try and get the likes of Christina Grossman either soften her legs a little bit more, because I do know Alice is a rider who can go again and again and again and again. She really is one of those top tiers. And so perhaps trying to put Grossman in a bad spot with 173 beats per minute with only a few K left to go. We did see a lot of information just given to the riders around this pack with a lot of feather power-ups being used, and there will be no more power-ups. So information that you can't get necessarily until a situation like this, because as you go through each and every one of those banners, new power-ups can be given. Riders obviously don't have the information about that around them. But once you get to this section, you know there's no others. You know that the riders who just used that power-up have nothing else to use to the line. You also know the riders that did not use a power-up are going to most likely have something still in the bag. So we did see the CryoGen rider just a moment ago use a feather power-up to hang on. And so I believe that was a Martin here from the CryoGen Dinosaurs. I believe that did use that. I think I did see Ramsey perhaps as well also use a feather power-up. So a few of these riders going to no longer have a same kick and speed to the line. Most likely not going to be involved. I have a feeling in this last couple of laps, anyone who got an aero power-up has been hoarding it in order to use it into that final kick.
Oh, I'm a fan of the feather power-up for the sprint myself. I just think that when you drop it at the perfect time, when starting rate, it can add so much to your acceleration and make a big difference. So I do think anybody with a feather power-up, if they have thought about how to use it, could be in a really good position as well. Bummer if you've got the draft. It's not going to serve you particularly well in the sprint in the same way that the aero or the feather would. But they've still got 3.5 kilometres left to run here, just shy of 4K, and they're certainly already really positioning for this sprint aren't they? I think after that attack from Lethbridge, they're all very cognizant of the fact that let break go if nobody is paying attention, and that you do not want to be the one to chase. Grossman was it not necessarily looking in trouble, but she was certainly toward the back of the pack and needs to start moving up. Irish was 12 seconds behind. I guess this is the answer to your puzzle before, Nathan.
Yeah, some of her teammates, Molly Q as well as Debbie and Shape, both riding for Rave, are hanging out over in the Twitch chat, and they're letting us get a little bit of inside information here about what was going on with Irish just a moment ago. So they'll be out here cheering her on into these final few kilometers, obviously. What a great effort there coming in from Irish to get back on terms. 12 seconds is no joke amongst an A8 category out here on Zwift with some of the top ladies. Grossman at 2.8 watts per kilogram currently as they head into Ocean Boulevard. They'll be taking a right-hand turn now, and they'll be seeing the last drag of Ocean Boulevard before the 3% uphill gradient. That's the last kick out here, and it is a gradient that I have and many have. I've seen many riders try and make a move on before plenty of times, and it has stuck in the past. Even a move with, there is a little bump after the 3% gradient when all the heart rates get really high and everybody tries to set up for their sprint. They're trying to cool down actually a little bit before you get into that last 500 meters. At that lull too, I've seen riders go before that right-hand turn into the final drag. So we'll have to see what happens here in just a moment. But there's still opportunity out here for the riders that got a solid 6 to 7, 8 watt per kilogram for 30 seconds rather than that full 13 that we see at the top from Tilly Field.
Well, they do need to play it really smart here. Grossman in particular, all eyes will be on her, and the minute she moves, others will move with her. I think she needs to time it a little bit later. Field, I reckon there's a really big opportunity there, Nathan, to, if she does have a power up, to get an early jump, because she does have such a high 15-second power. Now, assuming that she is in good form, she is coming into the Aussie summer. We've got nationals in less than or just about a month's time, which is, of course, a very huge race for Australians. Bigger this year, Nathan, because we do have the World Championships on soil in Wollongong for 2022. So there's a lot of Aussie riders who will be looking to perform, as well as possible at the National Championships in January, because we do have a wonderful selection that usually includes the national road champion in the World Championship team, regardless of whether they actually do go to Europe to race or not. So that is a very big kind of carrot that is dangling in front of all of these riders. And I imagine that Tilly Field would be really building her form over the next month. On the basis of that, I think she's in a really great position to position herself well. But Catherine Curry for the late move. Now, this is an interesting one from Riot, teammate of Grossman. Nathan, is Grossman perhaps calling no good legs and Curry having to see if she can give Riot a go?
I think it's forcing, Kate. Go ahead. Sorry, Kate. You were about to say exactly that, I believe.
I was. I mean, that's the other opportunity, is you don't want a lot of breaks to go, and if one of your teammates can control the pace at the front a little bit more rather than let it go like a yo-yo, that is also very beneficial.
Is Grossman in a good spot, though? Is she in a good spot? No, she's not. There's the break situation here. This needs to get pulled back together here. Smith from Riot looking to do just that at 6 watts per kilogram. Now here comes Terhage now trying to close things down, but there's a gap here, and Socks for Watts all over the front here. Alice Lethbridge doing what she does, up and out of the saddle here from the Pain Cave, 5.8, but I think this is a setup for a teammate, Vicky Whitelaw, because this is most likely not going to stick to the line, and I think Vicky Whitelaw is sitting in for that final kick.
And where is Maria Frisk? Because she is the one with that huge amount of wattage. If she can get to she's one of the best positioned and has been so far. She really hasn't put her nose in the wind at all. But whenever these breaks have been forced, she has still been there. Lethbridge is pushing the pace, but it's the move from Tilly Field, exactly as we spoke about, Nathan. She has gone early.
Daniela Estrate, though, Estrate over the top, 9 watts per kilogram, arrow power up field trying to kick to the line here, but I think Daniela Estrate has saved perhaps just enough to take this out all the way to the line. Tilly Field trying to make it happen, but Daniela Estrate followed up by Field and Vicky Whitelaw, and man, that was so close right to the line there when it came to the fields, the rest of the field, but Daniela Estrate and the timing was absolutely perfect to take that down. And we said if she sat in and waited, and Tilly had 10 watts per kilogram, but that was experience that lost that, in my opinion, for Tilly. Tilly went with a drafting power up at just not quite the right time and ended up not even involved when it came to the kick there from Daniela.
Well, I'm going to put it out there, though. If she had one of the other power-ups, she kind of drew the short straw when it came to power-ups there.
True.
Field with that drafting. It could have been different. I'm not sure that it would have outweighed that incredible sprint from Estrate. You picked it, Nathan. I'm happy to say so far we've got 100% pick rate on the people that we are tipping. Field went very early, perhaps 100 or 200 meters too early. In my opinion, it was a long drag race. But look at this acceleration from Estrade. Now, if you look at her power numbers, they're not quite in the double digits, but they are fairly high. I think it was excellent timing with that power up as well. And that the moment she got past Field, even though Field did re-accelerate, it was that moment that Estrade certainly got the advantage. But
Well, just take a quick look here at the
pretty dominant
speed difference. I mean, I think Tilly's probably doing 50 to 51K at this point. If you look at Estrade, she's up into 57 flying by, right? So it was the timing, and speed is still king. Or queen, I'll say queen here, obviously, as within the reality of any kind of bike racing, right? It doesn't matter the power you have if you don't use it to create acceleration, velocity, and speed, especially in a field sprint like this. And Tilly, she did have a solid kick, but the speed from the pack and the way that she wasn't dragged along by the pack ended up her in a second place. Vicky Whitelaw, I believe, in there for third, Embry fourth, Curry, I think, for fifth. Lethbridge trying to lead out her teammate, I believe, Whitelaw, unable to do so, and it does end up being Aeonian taking this down today. And a solid move. I said it, the reality was that the team out there with Aeonian and Daniela Estrate, they kept things cool the entire time through in order to take those points down, as Estrate was at almost 3 watt per kilogram. And some of the riders in that front group were actually up into almost 4. Just to be a part of that conversation. So Estrade keeping it very smart to take down that win.
Yeah, that was a sensational sprint from her. And we can also look at the fact that she had a disc wheel. Field perhaps didn't dial her bike setup to the same degree. Now, whether she has access to all of the same equipment or not is another question. But that certainly can come into play when you're talking about just the pure speed that you need, because you nailed it, Nathan, when you said it doesn't matter how many watts per kg you have. It's all about the speed at the end of the day. And there was a big speed differential when Estrade flew past Field. We're on to the Bs now. This is now the fourth sprint we'll get to essentially call, because even from smaller groups, every race today has been a sprint of some sort. We haven't seen any solo riders today. We actually see quite a lot of solo victories in the ZRL series. So we don't get to see these fantastic bunch sprints. So it's fantastic to see. They've got about 3 kilometres left. The field is whittled down, but still enough that there will be a fair bit of jockeying within the bunch over this final little set. This is the palming up out of the tunnel that Catherine Curry attacked in the A's and did a bit of damage and certainly put a bit of pressure on. I actually think she may have been a bit of a nail for Christina Grossman in that regard coming up through here. But it will be an opportunity. So let's see if any of the B riders feel like they want to take that chance, or if they're just sitting around now and waiting for the sprint. I make that sound like they're on a couch just watching TV, eating crisps or something. When I say sitting around, not quite. They're still racing very hard with high heart rates. But certainly when they're spread out across the road like this, you know that it hasn't quite hit yet.
Jay Inga. This is going to be one of the Kirchmer cycling riders. She, I think, is the standout favorite in this pack right now. She's got a solid 12.3 watt per kilograms to give. This is a large pack, actually. I'm looking through here, and I think we've got, from what I'm seeing, 20 plus ladies here in this situation here, maybe even more. So, really solid pack. Corker here to the back now. Joanne Ernst also out here today. Be on the watch out also for the Vixen, Anna Shezkev. I'm going to try that name. Apologies. I didn't get anywhere near to that. That was very slaughtered. But level 25 Richter here. Just did Tour de Boudica last week, it looks like, and had a solid result with a second place in the B category. Maybe able to better that here. After 3 days of solid stage racing last week. But Inga does have the walk-away power numbers, I think, when it comes to this sprint. Really stand out, actually, amongst this pack. Almost 2 to 3 watt per kilogram higher than anyone else amongst the group. So watch out for Inga when she goes.
I do think that it might be some kind of joke on you, Nathan, but we do have the two hardest names to pronounce. Happen to be the two most powerful riders coming into this sprint. So Inga Jorica, I will attempt, and Anna Shvezkayev.
Oh man, yeah, that's a
and they are very powerful riders, actually. I mean, to get a 12.3 in a B category, I feel like there'll be a few riders thinking that's a little bit unfair to have her out there. But Jorica, she is certainly very well respected, some very big power numbers. But we've seen it in the other categories. Grossman, on paper, looked like a hands-down favourite. But, they have raced a number of kilometres. Now, they're in this final K now, Nathan, and this is where if anybody hit out from now, it wouldn't even be necessarily too early. We've certainly seen in the other categories the sprint having already started. What are they doing? They are just waiting and waiting and leaving it very late. This is only going to suit Shvezkayev, who is the first to move, but not even decisively. This is the latest left sprint we've seen to date.
Pizza party, Robinson to the line. Is it going to be Robinson? She made it happen, perhaps, to the line. Oh my goodness. She sits up. Was that Robinson? I saw her sit up at the end there and with a smile on the face. Soxworth's Pizza Party, I think, just made it happen with one of our live riders there. I'm going to have to take a look at that replay, though, real quickly, because it was right to the line. And the moment I saw the S4W there, and I see a big smile on the face there. She's pulling out the phone, probably with some chat on the Discord here. Always great to see the smiles, and afterwards what has just gone down, as that was an amazing kick coming in from the rider here, and we'll have to see if I can grab that replay here and see what exactly just went down, because that was that looked like perfect timing from Socks for Watts.
I gotta say, that was the most bizarre sprint I've seen in rather a while. Katie Robinson did a sensational job just jumping out at the very end there, but that was literally in the last 20-odd metres. So that was a little bit of an odd one. It's great to have her on the live cam, though, and see that little bit of a victory salute because we don't get to see that. So fantastic ride from Robinson there.
Looking through here, let's see how it ended up playing out, and it was going to be Robinson just getting her in screen. 5.2 watts per kilogram coming from her. She actually wasn't even in the orange numbers there when they were into the final 300 meters. Here come the orange numbers now, though. You see her coming from the middle of the pack, way back. She's like in 11th place, 9.3 watts per kilogram at this point. I believe she may have had an arrow power-up, which really did assist her there. It does look like it was her And Goat's Hagen here coming right to the line, neck and neck, but then there's the pull away. Sockswat's Pizza Party making it happen with Robinson. Great job by her. It was a Vikings rider here, I think, from Valkyrie, just over the top of the WTO, or excuse me, the KC rider. That's going to be Yen for the line there, but what a great job here from Sockswat's Pizza Party. Top team, and Sockswat's
team, top ride, but it still feels like they didn't realize the line was quite there. It was very wide across the road. A bit of an unusual sprint there, but look, either way, I think a really impressive ride from a whole lot of the teams today. Huge, Nathan, to have so many riders, horse, to just have up to 1,000 women racing at once is something I've never seen in the Zwift world, and I love it. I'm hooked. I want more of this.
I'm going to take a quick look here at some of the results as they do come in. We'll be able to take a look at the C category and the D category right off the bat here. We may have to push you on over to WTL.racing for some of the other results as they do come in. But this is what happened with Stidham, as you did say, across the line, followed by Torelli, only 7/100ths of a second back there. Mobius there for the third place finish. It's going to be Northway for fourth. Wimblet coming across for fifth here. Vermlo there in for sixth. Jillian Howland for seventh. It's going to be Kroll there coming on in for eighth there. Hektash there out of Slovenia for ninth. And it's going to be McCarter rounding out your top 10. And in the D category, it's going to be Sam's there at the top.
Yeah, Nikki Sames, she did it for CMA. Great job from her. Ali Hogsberg in second. Sargensen sitting in third. Megan Mouser, kick at the end. She came in fourth. Trish Calamaris from the Llama Stay. Won't forget that beautiful llama jersey. She was sitting in fifth. Erin Artessa came in sixth. Carrie McBride following after that. Jen Nelson coming in eighth. We've got Christy Johnson in ninth, and we've got C. Riley in 10th. Another Aussie. And actually, Sames is a Kiwi. Nathan, I can't claim her as an Aussie, but look, same region, Oceania region, bookending the D category.
Yeah, good on them. I think we have to wait here for the rest of the results as they do come in from WTRL. We may need to push you on over to there as well as for the rest of the team results as they do come in. All the points are being calculated. From what I'm seeing, though, it's going to be very, very close. I'm getting an update here in just a moment for the points situation as it does come in. Let's take a look and see how that ended up playing out. We'll bring those in, I think, across the board. I'm wondering if this is going to be team points or if this is going to be the individual points across the board. And I do believe it is going to be the individual points across the board. But Kate, I want to just, as we bookend this, talk a little bit about what we just saw, when it comes to women's racing. 5th annual, you say this is going to turn into a legacy. I think that's absolutely true.
It is really brave leadership, I think, to create this team from the absolute grassroots up so many years ago in response to something that they didn't feel right with for the women not getting the equal opportunities. And it's very much Field of Dreams. I'm old school. I love that movie. But if you build it, they will come. And this is a very good indicator of that. Women love to have a space to belong and they love the hardcore racing. It's certainly not about just coffee rides. But heck, if you just want to do a coffee ride, I think that is fine too. And you do get a lot of people with very different motives just wanting to be part of something. And they definitely have built something very magical here. So huge kudos to the whole team at Fearless because I think that what you have done just shows this weekend with such incredible support. Never seen this many women racing on Zwift, and I've done my fair few number of Zwift races in terms of sitting on this side on the production. So exciting to see.
Absolutely awesome to see. Great job by everybody out there. Now, if you do want to check out any more racing here on Zwift Community Live, we will be live with the Legion Crit. Make sure to check that out if you want to check out Crit Racing on the new Neokyo Crit course on Tuesday. We've got Chase Racing on Wednesday. We've got TTT on Thursday. Lots and lots going on. All those broadcasts are on the YouTube for Zwift Community Live, already scheduled, as well as playlists for each one of those series. So make sure to go check that out. We will be back at you Tuesday for the Legion Crits. We're going to push you over to WTL.racing for any more results, as there's lots of numbers still to crunch for which teams took things down, but we were able to catch for you the scratch races, the points across the line for each of the categories. Kate, thanks so much for getting up early and hanging out with me for this awesome Team Fearless Championships. It has been absolutely great to have you here with us as always. As always, everybody, hit those follow buttons, subscribe, like, comment. It helps the channel out a ton. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitter. Follow us on all those places, and we'll see you next week for the Legion Crits. As always, right on.